Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's KTaNE League EFM action. This is a Group B matchup between Benjamin 172 and James. I'm joined alongside MCD 573, and MCD, you've been doing it all in this. You're doing it all in this league this year. You're doing experting for myself competition. You're doing team competition, and you're in the commentary box.
Yeah, I'm
What do
doing
you?
everything.
Which do you think is the hardest form of competition as we going into EFM today? Which do you think is the hardest one?
Probably the hardest is EFM because there's just so much more room for error. You've got, as well as having to avoid fat fingering everything on the diffusal side, you also have to worry about, are your calculations correct? It's kind of like taking the worst parts of both things and tossing them together.
Sounds good. All right, so here's how this is going to work. First of all, if you have never seen the game Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, I suggest you stop watching this video and go to keeptalkinggame.com and discover one of the greatest asymmetrical co-op games ever devised, because this features a bunch of modded modules, of which there are almost over 1,000. MCD, you've been creating profiles for this and curating your lists of modules. How difficult is it to keep up with a meta where creators are constantly churning out content and the players, it seems, are getting better and better and better in ways that were seemingly unfathomable maybe a year ago?
You have to kind of keep an eye on which modules are getting particularly popular. I know particularly for my list, I didn't really go with any new modules besides, well, my own. But I tried to kind of take a look at what modules might be considered hard or time consuming in the past. You have to think about, particularly when you're forming these lists, every single player has 2 vetoes from every other list, and it's the same for the team competition. So you can pick 2 mods on someone else's list that you dislike and never want to see. Now, those vetoes aren't common knowledge this season, so we have no clue which ones the players will have chosen until we see the bombs. So you kind of have to figure out what can you force people to veto away that you might actually be particularly good at.
Not until it's too late. Now, everybody came up with a list of 15 modules, and as you mentioned, every week there will be 2 vetoes. So James vetoed 2 off Benjamin's list, and vice versa, Benjamin off James' list. Here's how this is going to work. We're going to play 3 bombs. On the first bomb, James will have the majority of the modules, 7 of them, and Benjamin just 3, with a staff module thrown in as well. Then a second bomb where Benjamin will be on this power play, and then a third bomb where there will be no advantage numerically. The winner will be the person who either diffuses their bomb quicker, or if someone blows up, whoever has more modules solved. Every time you beat your opponent, you get 1 point. If you solve the same number of modules as your opponents and don't defuse the bomb, that is considered a tie this year. I believe there was a different rule in the 2020 KTaNE League, but that's different this time around.
We made it simpler, basically. Let's work on our end.
Well, with that, shall we get into bomb number 1, MCD?
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch through each of our 3 bombs here, and we're going to give our thoughts on how the bomb's going and commentate the action. At the end, we'll reveal the current standings, which is also in the KTaNE League Discord, which Elias should be posting in the description. And then we will give a recap of the week, and we will say goodnight. But until then, let's take a look at our first bomb, shall we?
Here we go.
Let's go. Audio is going to start on James's side because it is, of course, James Bond. Bomb? I said James Bond.
Bomb. James Bomb.
1, 8.
Interesting difference in strategy here. James is starting by looking at the module increasing indices, whereas you see Benjamin is looking around the edges for the so-called edge work. That's all the widgets around the edges of the bomb. And Benjamin will start with Black Hole, which is actually off.
It is.
No, it's not.
Off of. It is off of James's list.
3, 2.
I wonder if James is. I think James may be solving the modules, but not necessarily submitting the final answer that would give a solve, because both Laundry and Black Hole have solve-dependent things, where it's very easy for Black Hole if you leave it until you solve 3 modules, entering 1 digit at a time, and Laundry it's a lot easier if you solve it with 0 or 6 modules solved.
4 minus 2 minus 3. Right.
So in different ways, the other consideration with Black Hole and leaving it late is that if you strike, which, as in any Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes game, if you strike, the timer accelerates, it becomes harder to input Black Hole because the holding and releasing has to be done around the timer ticks, which, if they're faster, is more difficult to do.
Yeah.
Benjamin is looking at the Crystal Maze right now, based off the popular UK TV show. He's in medieval world trying to figure out that mathematical calculation.
Looks like he got the crystal from it. He's now going to be moving on to the futuristic section where the goal is to find what is off with every single one. They're either going to be all colors that don't match, or they're all going to be colors that match.
Okay. There's 3 pots, and it's 2 8s. 1, 2, 3 pots.
If you take a look in the bottom left and bottom right corners of the screen, you'll see a live update of both players' timers and their solve and strike counts. This is something that every player was required to have on, and it helps our commentating and your watching be a little bit easier.
Right. 3 is
The old heads-up display. That percentage, on the other hand, I think is a rough indicator of how ahead or behind the player is.
Yeah,
It's a little confusing at times, but that green solve number and the red strike number are the big ones here.
first. Right, there is 11.
James going for the laundry solve here.
0 pots.
Laundry is notorious for having a strike at the beginning of the bomb or ruining an attempt, but in this, you don't get a second try.
8 plus 2 is 10.
Interestingly, with laundry, remember the KTaNE League rules this year. Many people have come up with alternative manuals, which are all available on the repository of manual pages. That's katane.timwe.de. And
Oh, wait.
laundry has a number of optimized manuals, and they're all legal. So for 0 solves, you can, if you have a certain solve count, you could just go over to it and look it up, and the calculation is slightly easier this time around, rather than having to use the original manual.
Benjamin getting our first solve of the bomb, soloing Boolean Venn diagrams as James goes for the laundry solve.
0. Remember that.
Benjamin going for a very long interact. Ooh.
Right, somehow.
Strike 1 to James on Black Hole as a misentry occurred there. It's always easy to get that first digit, but have you really gotten that second digit? Are you launching off at the right point? Have you counted the boards correctly?
Well,
This time, James enters the second digit, 1 more, and that will be solved.
I guess
Looks like Benjamin's going for a jailbreak solve, which is a very long interactive, as James gets out the black hole.
I'm surprised by this decision, MCD, actually. I'm sure Benjamin has a lot more confidence with this module than I do, clearly, but it's very easy for that module to be a so-called heartbreaker, where you just can't get it. As you see, he's winding down to 30 seconds, and... Is Yetta a word?
It is, yes, and it looks like it's gonna be Zeta.
Zeta, the Greek letter, of course.
Yeah. Benjamin pulling up Notepad right now, presumably to do the equations.
Increasing indices actually benefits greatly from SamFundev's text field calculator. You can enter the variable and enter the equation, and the objective is to find the values of x that will make the equation equal to 0. So that's what Benjamin is doing right here, is entering the equation in such a way that text field calculator will be able to capture it. At least I'm fairly sure they're using the text field calculator here.
Looks like that. They're copy pasting it right now. Now that's also available as a tool on KTaNE.timwe.de, meaning it is completely legal to use in the league. James currently up on solves right now, but he did not solve that jailbreak yet, which could be partially the reason for the solve disparity.
So I'm looking at this bomb here, so this actually turns out to be Benjamin's advantage bomb. It's the hallmark of Benjamin's profile is that he has Game of Life Simple and Game of Life Cruel, and they've both appeared on this bomb, those blinking white and black tiles, not the solid white and black tiles, and blinking color tiles in the case of Game of Life Cruel. James picked Black Hole, Laundry, which we've seen already, and also Boolean Venn diagram came off both players' lists.
Now, 2 modules that we are not going to see from Benjamin's list, thanks to James vetoing them away. Since the first week is over, we are allowed to reveal. We will not be seeing the Necronomicon or Cruel Countdown. from Benjamin's list here.
998,
I believe regular countdown is enabled, meanwhile, but Necronomicon I'm not as surprised to see.
Yes.
There's a very specialized alphabet, and if you're very familiar with Necronomicon, there's this very strange alphabet that people who love the Necronomicon, great module, I agree.
Yeah, it's a wonderful mod.
You-
I don't know.
you
the
can become-
alphabet.
So if you don't, you have a time disadvantage there. So why not veto it and take that edge away from your opponents?
It's very similar to what happened with me in terms of the cube. For most people, they have to go directly from the symbols to the numbers in order to decipher the cipher. But in that case, for me, I've basically memorized the entire symbol table, so I can eliminate a step entirely.
Okay, good. I'm not doing jailbreak yet. Do this.
Remember, you see the timer drifting away for James here. The strike time means that the timer accelerates to 1 1/4 times how normal seconds work, so that's why the clocks are drifting further and further apart.
5,
Remember, if both players defuse their bomb, it is whoever has more time remaining on their bomb timer that tie breaks it.
9,
Benjamin's
One
starting
other-
to catch up here. Go ahead.
One other remark is that the bombs should be 15 minutes long, and in the future this will be corrected.
30,
And I believe for most of the other matchups they were 15 minutes, but
5.
these ended up being a half hour. That won't always be the case.
I do.
I don't think these players will need nearly this much time, to be fair.
Considering how far James is along here, I will not be surprised if he solves it before the 15-minute mark.
8 plus C. 18 plus 20 is 38.
Benjamin's looking at third base, which is the upside down who's on first. That comes off our staff picks for the week. It's a list of 5. Every player got 1 veto off it, but otherwise, you take what you're given.
X, which is 8.
Interestingly enough, later on, I believe, Cruel Cruel Game of Life is actually a staff pick, but
Yellow.
not for this week.
Oops, blue one. Orange.
The 5 available for this week that the players could see on their bombs are Gridlock, Button Sequences, Simon's on first, Varicolored Squares, and Third Base, which is on this bomb.
Darn it.
Of course, meaning those modules might appear later.
James is only able to get 3 crystals here, meaning he's only going to have 15 seconds to grab 15 gold tickets.
20 seconds is always the safest. If a player thinks they don't have enough time for the Crystal Maze, they don't have to go to the Dome straight away. We're looking for 15 on the green here.
Looks like he's grabbed some silver tickets,
Oh
and
boy.
there you got it. You got it. You got it.
Oh my goodness, stop, James. You had 15.
James,
He's got
no.
19 now.
We were worried.
What are you doing?
We were worried he might have accidentally clicked on the silver.
James is off to a commanding lead here. Benjamin having a look at laundry here.
1,
Interesting, he's solving it for 4.
3, 3, 3, 1, 1.
Most people would go for a 0 or 6 solve, but no, Benjamin's just going for 4.
4,
I see a module, I solve a module.
2,
Fair enough.
2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 3.
James is working on Game of Life now. Like I mentioned, that's off...
2, blah, 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 blah.
where is it? That's off Benjamin's list.
Lots.
Solving the twin Game of Lifes.
That.
Twin Games of Life.
Yes. So this module is based off of the classic theory of Conway's Game of Life. It's sort of like a simulation of evolution in a sense.
Bang, bang, go wang. Bang, 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 bang.
And one of those is solved for James. Now, the interesting part about Cruel Game of Life is you have to figure out if the flashing squares are white or black.
Just post does not contain.
Based on conditions around the widgets around the edges of the bomb, they either turn white or black to start, and then you solve the Game of Life that way.
Okay, perfect.
Benjamin needs to start flexing this advantage right now because he is way behind at the moment.
Turns white if there are more on it. Okay, that'll be white then.
He is ahead of the pace of the bomb right now,
Flashing,
but
one
James
colour.
is very much higher ahead of the pace, according to our bomb HUD.
It's not
Interesting
good
choice
for that,
Benjamin's
though.
doing here. He's using the snipping tool instead of the interactive manual.
I'm gonna say
You can
yes.
see right there him trying to figure out which modules are going to become white, and then at the same time he'll also be figuring out which modules, which will become black.
It's a primary and a secondary. It does
So a
contain
pixel goes from black to white if it's surrounded by 2 or 3 white pixels, and then a black pixel turns white if it is surrounded by exactly 3 white.
Yeah. Mind blown. Serial number contains one letter in common. S-E-A.
If Benjamin has done this properly, and James.
We'll find out.
Unless... Okay, so that'd be off.
The pain of not having 2 monitors.
Do not solve.
There is another interesting wrinkle to Game of Life. Once submitted, it will flash up the correct answer, the answer, for a split second. So even if a strike is coming, if you're paying attention, Benjamin's got it.
Nice.
But if it's struck, a careful glance might give away the answer.
Or a hit
That's
of
how
the
the
great
great-
screen button.
That's how the Great Berate solved Praetorian.
That is. It can save your life.
2, 3 then.
It's not how Procyon solved the Praetorian, which was basically wire to wire until Forget-Me-Not.
Yup.
But they did it anyway.
Very proud.
All by themselves.
That's probably the most impressive EFM feat I've seen in a while.
Doesn't submit. Oh, it probably can submit.
Procyon actually fought me in this week's League Bomb.
Do.
They had
How'd it
some
go?
interesting modules.
I say this having checked the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll get to that in just a moment.
Yes.
Where...
James is now attacking Jailbreak in exactly the order I would have as the penultimate module or later.
Undo. Into...
What is the best method, in your opinion, for Jailbreak? My approach would just be to make sure you get all the possibilities for the first letter, all the possibilities for the second letter, and so forth.
Oh, wait, no.
For me, what I like to do is I like to solve for the first letter. If I get a second letter along the way, that's, just bonus. But really, you can kind of start to narrow down what the word might be if you get that first letter out of the way.
See ya.
Right now, James has the middle 2 letters.
Okay.
James has officially ticked over 15 minutes, meaning that if this was proper,
Meet.
he would be blown up by now. Benjamin with a strike on Black Hole.
This isn't it. Oh, shit. Zeta. Oh, yes.
Remember, Black Hole, even though this is Benjamin's bomb, was off of James's list. Like you mentioned, most people prefer to attack Black Hole earlier, but I guess Benjamin just wasn't willing to take it on early.
James with a bomb
Meanwhile-
solve.
James just solved that Benjamin now has 2 minutes and 20 seconds less than with the strike to make up that ground.
I wish him
It was very annoying.
much luck
Wow.
as he gets in another digit on Black Hole.
Got the first digit of Black Hole, now you gotta go here.
Ooh.
Aztec World or Crystal Maze.
Aztec World is one of the most unforgiving because, as you can see, those kilogram values will change, and if you accidentally click an extra time, you could lose track of how much weight you have.
Data. No.
It swaps after a set number of times, like every other 15th time or 20th time. You don't know what it is until it happens.
Ooh, Benjamin was one kilogram away, and that is not enough to get it. You have to be on the nose.
Actually get the log. And then...
Benjamin can't see how James did, but Benjamin is hurrying like he does have to catch up to James's time. It's like he does know. This is interesting. All his
Presumably
own.
because there's 14 minutes left.
Find out, I guess.
Here he comes again. 15 gold after deduction of silver, as Richard would say in his actual accent.
Stop, Benjamin, stop.
Benjamin gives up. Look at this!
Oh,
Wait a second, does Benjamin have this?
Benjamin has
Black
it!
Hole Crystal Maze is solved. Benjamin wins Bomb 1.
Wow, that really came down to the wire. I'm very impressed.
Go.
Well. I guess
No.
Benjamin had a brilliant solve ordering there, as they left Game of Life late, they left Black Hole late, they left Crystal Maze late, and then bang, 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 all done, and no boom, most importantly.
With only a minor hiccup on that black hole there. That was very amazing. I don't know if I would have been able to do that.
It's an interesting strategy to hold the submissions for later. Sometimes it's very demoralizing. Well, to be fair, that's more so on a big bomb when you want to know right away whether or not you're on track or not. But here, when you only have one attempt and it's a small bomb, you're just giving it your all. This is how I like KTaNE because you just the strategies change up accordingly, and it's an adjustment for people who might be more used to big bombs, essentially.
Yeah, you don't give up after a single shot.
Okay, so it is on to bomb number 2 now, where James will have the advantage, and James will get the majority of the modules on this bomb. Benjamin defended his advantage just on that first bomb. It'll be interesting to see what happens next.
One guarantee module that we are going to see on here is Forget-Me-Not. It is the boss module James selected. Interestingly enough, for this particular league, there will be no boss modules ever on the staff pick bomb. Instead, if a player picks a boss module, it will only be on their advantage. So with that being said, let's get going. Forget-Me-Not's an interesting bomb an interesting situation here, as the players will have to note down a single letter, a single number every single time they solve a module, and then calculate it all to enter at the end.
Don't forget to look at it, essentially.
Hence
This
why...
was from...
Yeah, go ahead.
This was from Hexacube's Advanced Base Module series, and that's before we even called it a boss module. Boss modules before they were called that. Boss modules before they were cool? Nah, everyone loves Forget-Me-Not.
Everyone loves Forget-Me-Not. Also, hi Panda, we heard his voice over there in Coffee Bucks.
Oh, that's right.
Enjoy your coffee. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Panda.
Welcome to Coffee Bucks. May I take your
Elias
name,
is a man of
please?
many talents.
He is.
Ben.
And it looks like James is going for Battleship. Interestingly enough, this is a module that a lot of diffusers can do completely solo, meaning they don't have to look at a manual.
Enjoy your coffee.
The idea is to get the number of ship pieces correct based on the numbers of the rows and columns. That tells you how many ship pieces there are. And the radars, based on the widgets around the bomb, are potential safe spots. So if you can calculate those correctly, they'll give you hints that may be needed, maybe not, in order to come up with the correct solution.
And sometimes those hints aren't helpful at all. And there it is.
Notice how that red keypad in the bottom left of James's bomb augmented. It's now stage 2, and the big number 3, meaning stage 2 is a 3. That's not just reciting the digits now. We need a calculation to be done for every single digit in order to solve Forget-Me-Not.
This isn't Forget-It-Not.
Which you can find from V-Flyer's package of modules.
And it looks like Varicolored is our staff pick for this bomb. It's one of the many colored squares variants out there.
Colored, uncolored, decolored, discolored, varicolored, juxtacolored.
Nobody likes juxtacolors.
Juxtacolored is interesting. It's a palette of 16 colors. I like it. It's like a more forgiving adjacent letters where you never are going to miss one. But on the other hand, it's tough to tell the colors apart. I think it's one of the few I play on colorblind mode. James and Benjamin tied up 2-2 here. Remember, Boolean Venn diagram is one they can both do, and both very quickly as well.
Benjamin taking the lead, as James is going for iPhone, which is a 4-part module that essentially revolves around you getting a reset code.
Did you know Royal Flush made that battery meter tick down with the bomb, so as the bomb runs out of time, the battery runs out of juice?
I did not know that, and I'm in love with it now.
The time at the top is the actual time on their computers, respectively. Remember, James and Benjamin did this on their own time. They did it. They sat down and did it and only got one go at it, but they can't see each other's time. So they will probably be watching this with all of us here on the internet, anxious to see who actually prevailed. We know right now that Benjamin is up 1-0 after that bomb 1 narrow victory.
And James is currently tying it back up as he moves on to plumbing, which is a module that is what's known as a prep, meaning you can do the work for it without ever needing a read.
Apart from the bomb widgets, but most people do that at the very beginning.
Benjamin retaking the lead here, as he also moves on to plumbing.
Plumbing could be a potential heartbreaker for these players. You don't know. Sometimes the puzzle just doesn't click, but the idea is to figure out where the water is coming in on the colored pipes on the left, red, yellow, green, or blue, or blue, I should say, and which pipes on the right it needs to connect to. No leaks is allowed. It needs to be an airtight pathway.
Any sort of leak or any sort of incorrect piping will result in a strike. It looks like we're going to see a red, green, blue input, if that's correct,
Ooh.
into what looks to be a only blue output. But as you can see, the puzzle's is starting to not click.
Blue tends to be the most frequent one. This is interesting. I'm having a look at Benjamin's screen here. Benjamin, I believe, yes, we'll have the same inputs here, so they're aiming for the same solution here.
And I think James has it.
I'm wondering. I think so. Check every pipe. Yes.
There it is. Benjamin appears to have gotten the input, but he didn't like the puzzle, so he's moving on to another module. That's a good situation for leaving it until the end, until you have a little bit more time to play with.
We saw it work bomb 1. We'll see here. Can Benjamin get the steal here on James's advantage bomb?
Rhythm solve over on James. That revolves around checking a flashing light to kind of figure out what kind of musical pattern you're dealing with.
The objective of varicolored squares, which Benjamin is attacking now, is to grow that colorful bunch by hitting the correct color squares. And the idea is to turn the entire grid one single color at the very end.
And as soon as you do that, you get a solve.
That was a lucky press there with the yellow. Very fortunate for Ben.
Oh, yeah. And that's a solved varicolored.
5-5.
We're now looking at James going over to Coffee Bucks, which, as we saw earlier on Benjamin, essentially revolves around you taking a customer's preferences and giving them a drink. And also, the faster you give them a drink, the easier it is to solve, because you don't need to serve as many drinks.
Color Morse is on the right. Each light is blinking a single letter or number in Morse code on repeat. And each will turn into a number in base 36, essentially, where the letters are their alphanumeric position plus 9, and then it becomes a mathematical equation, and the response needs to be inputted using the Morse buttons there.
James moving on to Hexamaze, which is a maze that you have to orient properly based off of the symbols you see inside. And then you just navigate that pawn to the correct side and go out.
Interesting. Benjamin seems to have an older version of Color Morse. I wonder if that also explains why the modules, which are otherwise identical, are appearing in slightly different positions, because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Timwee re-uploaded Color Morse. Look at James's bomb, bottom middle there. You can see the display actually outputs the dots and dashes and spaces you put there. Benjamin didn't download that re-uploaded version.
Interesting enough.
It's very sneaky and sneaky, and we're working on it in the workshop, trying to make sure that people always have the latest up-to-date versions of modules, but it's not always easy to do. Again, like I mentioned, hundreds of modules now in the workshop, hundreds of modules to potentially keep track of.
It looks like they do have the same answers, though. They are getting the same responses, which is really all that matters, meaning that Benjamin's test bomb looked alright. We do have each player run a test bomb beforehand just to make sure they're getting the same inputs, because as you've been noticing throughout this, every single solve on both modules have been the same. We give each player the same responses in order to ensure fairness.
It's amazing all the work that goes into that too. It is not easy to run a league, especially when you have all that technical machinations trying to make sure everyone has the right bomb, everyone's running it the right way, the one time, and it works the first time.
Major props to Elias for doing that. River also being a very, very big help. The Weasel.
Yep. River's always that one doing behind-the-scenes tech work that, like, you don't say his name often, but he's always there, always doing stuff that continues to be very helpful to the KTaNE community. 20 and a half minutes now. James up 8-7 as Benjamin gets that solve there. Remember, this is James' advantage bomb. He is holding the lead right now. If he loses this bomb to Benjamin, we know for certain that Benjamin will come away with the series win here.
Benjamin taking a look at Blind Maze, actually, which is a solve-dependent module.
James has 2 modules left, including Forget-Me-Not and including Blind Maze. Now, Blind Maze, I strike on many times. I don't know about you, but I've seen people get tripped up by so many small pieces of minutia that, for whatever reason, can tangle players up. Did you remember to add the maze number to the last digit of the serial number? Do you have your north, south, and east-west the right way around? Things like that.
There's so many different things that you can do that would just screw it up entirely. But if James solves this, you will see his Forget-Me-Not turn into a whole bunch of dashes, and that means his job is to remember all those numbers, do some calculations, and input them all in. Ooh, there's a strike.
Benjamin got it too, interestingly.
Strikeless as well. You're gonna
Did I mention you had to rotate the maze?
Yes,
Did I mention there's some head turning involved?
Yeah.
Well, Benjamin's doing this again. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. 9-9. And also, Benjamin's up on the counter, as James now has to input that FMN.
Oh, he's been doing it as he went. James is going to get this.
And there
Yes.
it is. 1844 on James's bomb, as Benjamin...
That's 2 seconds.
Oh,
Wow.
barely. Came down to the wire there, as Benjamin loses by 4 seconds.
My goodness. Game of inches. Game of milliseconds. We're tied 1-1.
We are.
Which means we go to bomb 3 and there is no advantage for either side.
I believe the layout is, I want to say, 5
apiece
and
1 staff pick.
All right. So as we go in knowing that whoever wins this bomb takes out the series and a single point in the standings. You ready to go, Yabba? I know I am.
Oh, I am, absolutely.
All right, let's go.
Just think, they have no idea the razor-thin margins they've been creating here. They can't see each other's bomb, but it's coming down to fractions of a second.
Seeing Black Hole again, each player does have a couple mods that will repeat at some point because of the vetoes. The 2 modules that Benjamin vetoed away from James being Pattern Cube and X-Ray, which are both very interesting modules. They both have a quirk that made them particularly difficult to solve. And that's a quick countdown solve. Benjamin proving how good he is at countdown.
Right, Black Hole is probably figure out there's no ports. And it's
Benjamin already up 2-1.
7-3.
2 instances of countdown, huh? Wow.
Yeah, both of his countdowns, the duplicate countdown happened on the same bomb, and Benjamin going for another solo solve. That's 3-11. Super logic, another solo solve.
Now, James is attacking the black hole first. Same situation. Benjamin's not interested in the black hole right now. He'll leave it for later. It worked bomb 1. Will it work on bomb 3?
The one thing to take care of when it comes to black hole is if you leave it until the end and you don't have any other modules, you have to do 6 whole digits instead of 3. Which
7 even.
Oh yeah, it is 7. Meaning you have a whole lot more to calculate, and you have to get so many different numbers and add them all up. There's so much more room for error.
490.
Not to mention precious seconds lost.
Oh yeah.
8 divided by 8. 61.
Now then, Benjamin got this countdown by now, but James is working both of them.
Oh, that was nearly really easy. 100 times 100 plus 10 times 3.
Here's a very simple solution. There's a couple
Yeah,
very
that's
simple
100
solutions
plus
in
10
here.
Times 350. 100 plus 10.
Easy once you know them.
That, divided by that, subtract that.
That's one way.
That's one way.
Another cool game of life.
The good thing about Countdown is there are usually like about 15 or 16 different ways to solve the module, so you can kind of pick what works for you.
When posting countdown videos to the internet, there's 3 certainties: death, taxes, and people posting their own equally elegant numbers game solution for all to admire in the
Basically.
comments.
Green, orange, yellow. Okay. We are odd.
Staff module pick on Bomb 3 is Gridlock. All the others come from the players' lists.
Honk honk.
It's 1. Yellow, purple.
Usually that would be an interactive module where the diffuser and expert talk back and forth, trying to figure out which one will not let you move any further. But in this case, the players have the grid and they have the module.
3. Blue and green is 1.
And therefore the potential to go much quicker on it
And that's a 1.
But also the potential to screw up.
if you go too fast. Gotta go fast, but not too fast.
Off.
KTaNE League in a nutshell.
3.
Speed. I am speed.
That's gonna be 3. That's an obvious one.
Both attacking nonogram here. That's the puzzles that would ordinarily have numbers along the rows of columns that tell you how many dots and how many groups of dots there are
Bang.
in each row and column,
Strike.
as James gets it. But the colors instead cipher this, so you have to go back and forth with the manual to determine what numbers those colors actually represent.
C sharp. No, it's gonna be F sharp, G sharp.
3 to 3.
Yes, and I believe Benjamin already has 3 out of the 4, or he might have all of the notes imported into his chord qualities, which could be a decent way to get his black hole sub, because if he knows he has the correct answer, he can leave all of his submissions until the end.
G sharp, B with a sec.
Might as well. Safety play.
Is it that? G sharp to B to... No, it's not that. It's not on B, because I need to go... Is it on C
Benjamin
sharp?
double-checking
C
his
sharp,
work.
F sharp, jumping off 4th. Is it this? C
Again, leaving
sharp.
that solve, and now he's attacking
Of
the black
course
hole.
it is. C sharp,
Oh,
F sharp, G sharp, B. Yeah, C sharp 7 sus.
He does have 2 modules lined up so he should be able to get this in 3 digits.
I'll start on D. Just so
I see. So you queue up the solves, then attack the black hole. Again, impressive when you haven't seen the exact bomb before.
And look at that. There's a not a countdown, there's a chord quality solve.
Let's do this.
The countdown solves are what James needs.
He got
Well, he's
one.
got one. He needs another.
Benjamin moving on to Gridlock, where the goal is to find where that red star is starting you off, and then go from there.
1, then O, F,
Please do get stuck, and as quickly as possible.
That's the entire goal.
off, P, off, higher,
Maritime Flags is the module chosen. I confess I forget whose list it comes off of, but that's one that has an interesting skill curve as well. Much like Necronomicon, which got vetoed, Maritime Flags has its own alphabet that is relatively easily memorized, so that can save time for whoever possesses that advantage.
Well, alphabet memorization would come from Benjamin, as he had both Necronomicon and and Maritime Flags on his list.
Nervous, bit of a geek, sketchy.
James getting a British slang solve.
Oh shit.
That's another thing that's easily memorizable. James forgetting about his black hole. That can be a dangerous mistake if you leave it for too long.
It's on strike.
Yeah, he's inputting digits manually now. This is interesting.
He has to calculate one more digit now after a module solve.
Black hole's progress is indicated by the number of differently colored spikes that are circling around the edge. So if you only have the red spikes, that's one color, you only have 1 digit left. It starts out with 7 spikes going around the perimeter. That's how you know how many digits are remaining.
No yellows.
We won't see it
Manual,
on
it's
any
not
of our
specified.
bombs, but we won't see it on any of our bombs. But if you have multiple black holes, you have to calculate double the digits or triple the digits.
Crystal Maze isn't on this one. At most one port.
Which is possibly impossible.
Not on this.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So,
Ha 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 ha.
yeah, that's true. Calculate start position, then counterclockwise. Okay, then we're red, green, blue.
I know for certain that green and black tile is solve dependent as well.
3, 4. Yes.
Remember,
Start position.
again, those of you know how the original Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. You know that thing of the modules are discrete and can be solved in any order? Well, kind of. Not exactly. Sort of. Well, yes, but not. But actually, no.
Yes.
Space, and I thought it was wrong. Start at the start. It is red.
We see Benjamin going back to the tried and true paint snipping tool method.
So now your next page to the right.
There is a way to right-click on the interactive and highlight the tiles that way, but this could be more distinct. Like, you just hit the tiles that have the red stroke through it. The red stroke through it. Simple.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of people clearing out the board entirely and then re-putting in the final solution. But with this, it looks like Benjamin can just kind of take a look at the start and make sure he gets all the strokes properly. And that's a
Got
solve.
it. Efficiency matter.
To the right.
If they don't even know the margins, but they know every second counts.
As we currently are at 7 to 11, but keep in mind, Benjamin has those solves queued. And he can crank them out at the end like he did in that first bomb.
I love it when the approaches change up like this. The approaches just differ.
It's so interesting to see, because every single KTaNE player has a different way they like to do things. Hong Kong.
Oh, fuck, I need to put in these digits.
And that... Ooh, he still has one more
Time to go.
to calculate.
Still one.
Surprise, surprise, there were some orange spikes hovering about. Was that 5 digits in all after all that?
Yes. I don't know why or how he did... I don't know why he did 5 digits, but he did. I mean, to be fair, in one of my bombs against Procyon, which you won't be seeing commentated, I ended up having to do my black hole all 7 digits because I was at a point where I was running low on time and just needed another solve.
This one, there are 3 different ports.
Now then, this is an interesting situation. James is up 9 to 5. Benjamin is stockpiling solves. James's game of life cruel, and that countdown that he has looked at and gone away from.
Secondary
Benjamin finally inputting his black hole answer, and there is a chord quality solve. We're up to 6.
Here we go.
2 primaries, use the rule for the mix. Of course it's not.
Second digit in. 7 solves.
There is not. Okay.
That's a correct black hole.
Done that right.
And that is a tie match with that nonogram solve. Maritime coming in.
2.
How about gridlock?
Are we gonna get up?
Maritime's good.
Hong Kong! Benjamin wins the
Whoa!
series!
2.
Benjamin wins 2 to 1, taking bomb 3, the non-advantage bomb.
1. 4.
How about we keep watching James's bomb to see how he ends up?
1.
Absolutely.
3 there.
It's always fun to see how people solve certain mods.
1. 1. 2.
Do you think Benjamin's approach of queuing up solves and waiting until the last moment to submit, do you think that's going to catch on? Is the league going to take notice of that strategy, or is the KTaNE modded meta in general going to take notice of that?
Don't check it.
To be fair, there are certain things that it will be very good for. Like, for example, in something like this, if you have solves queued, and it gives you room for error in a sense, because if you strike on a mod and you're running lower on time, in a game like this where every single solve counts, even if you blow up your bomb, it's useful to have something that you can just keep move to the next. Like, for example, let's say Benjamin struck on the first thing he inputted, which was I believe chord qualities. He could just submit the next one, and it would go off without a hiccup. He would still get all those solves in, instead of necessarily having to leave more time to calculate extra answers if he strikes early on.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Because the time penalty is worse when it happens at the beginning of the bomb.
35.
You have less time overall to solve.
Oh, I nearly got minus
Now this is
that,
interesting.
that, minus
Ooh, and that's
Okay.
a solve. I didn't think that countdown was gonna work, but numbers
It
game
surprised me
solution. Numbers games have
Not-
their solutions.
Well, how interesting is that? So, even with the timer set at half an hour instead of 15 minutes, we would have had some defusals. I'm not sure. I forget about Bomb 1, but Bomb 3 certainly would have been on time. I think Bomb 2 was on time as well. We'll have to go to the recap for that. But what an interesting match that was. How
Indeed.
interesting to see these asymmetrical approaches converge, and what a great matchup it was.
Now, one thing that we will be seeing in the coming weeks, commentated, is there's also the team bombs.
Team Bombs, we got 4 teams. Of course, MCD is in Team Negative Creativity. Shall we just go over the out-of-town scoreboard here?
Let's do it!
So, Negative Creativity... Oh, should we start with that one? Took on Cloudburst and drew 1 bomb and lost 2. So, Cloudburst took that one 2.5 to 0.5. And then Stay Crazy, Stay Cruel won 3-0 over Refusal Defusal.
Stay Crazy, Stay Cruel is, again, the team that won last year's team competition. So, there'll be someone to watch.
Good form already.
All right. Now, when it comes to the EFM, we have 3 whole lists of players to play through because we got a lot of people this season.
Well, consider you put 4 people on a team. Of course, EFM, each player is their own contestant, competing entity. It's going to be easier to organize. So, yep, 3 groups of players, and you're in Group C. Let's go over some of the out-of-town results. I'm just going to pull this up here on my screen. And
all right,
let's go over them. We have Legend Wille, I hope that's how you pronounce that, versus Make Bow. Legend swept that one 3-0 here. And then the other 2 Group A's actually had some player retention. There was one did not start, and one withdrawal. Second player withdrew before it even began. So Group A is going to actually shrink down to 5 members when all is said and done, but we're going to have the chance to reorganize the group and get that group up and running soon. But Wille over Make Bow, the only result out of that group. Group B, a good username versus Crazy Caleb. And this was, I believe, the only person until just now with Ben and James who had solved 2 bombs. A lot of the rest of the players are coming up with challenging profiles that are starting to befuddle the other players. Caleb came close, but wasn't able to solve a bomb, but did get the second one nonetheless, despite not solving a single one. The one that username didn't solve, Caleb beat him on because that was his advantage bomb.
He had 8. Username had 8 solves, while Caleb had 9.
Ben and James, we just learned Ben is the winner, 2-1 on that. And then Teppel and Edan, the only fixture which was a complete draw. In fact, right down the middle. Teppel won the air bomb, Edan won his bomb, tied on the third one, and they're all happy. So 1.5, 1.5. And then Cookie Apocalypse took on Asu, and Asu nibbled the first bomb, halvesies. So that was a draw, and then 2 wins for Cookie, 2.5 to 0.5. And then we are on to
Hallow Jasper.
That's right. That last one was Group C. Hallow Jasper and Exerote.
I think that's
Zeroti, that's right.
Yeah.
By the way, one interesting thing about Cookie and Asu is the only person, again, until just now, who had lost on a diffused bomb. Everyone else's loss was on an incomplete bomb.
Yes. It looks like we have...
Hallow Jasper took on Zeroti and won 2.5 to 0.5 with the second bomb being drawn. MCD 573 versus Procyon will move swiftly on from...
Yeah, no, I lost.
Procyon is very good at KTaNE.
He won the EFM competition last year, I believe.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
They are very good at KTaNE. Interestingly enough, though, they only solved 1 bomb. The other 2, they didn't solve.
And if you haven't heard of the Praetorian, that's 161 modules. That's what I was mentioning there.
They did that.
And then that's the team fixtures. So in the coming weeks, this was week 1 of a multi-week round robin portion. So everyone in the respective groups and in the team division will be getting the chance to play each other and play each other's profiles. And it will be interesting to see how it shapes up in the coming weeks.
Since they're the easiest to say, I'll give you the team matchups. Next week, you'll see Stay Crazy, Stay Cruel versus my team, Negative Creativity. Hey, I'm gonna probably lose, but it's still gonna be fun. And we have Refusal Diffusal versus Cloudburst.
And then for week 2 in the EFM division, it is Group A, John versus Espic, Makebow versus Pokemon. Actually, Pokemon since
Dropped.
Pokemon withdrew, will have
We'll have,
then,
I believe...
and then Mosque versus Obvious is the other matchup.
Yeah.
Actually, this might have to be reshuffled as well, so we will
Yeah.
get back to you on that. Group B and C, though, we have the matchup set there.
Week
Caleb
2.
versus Edan, Ben versus Username, Bianca versus James, and Temple with the bye week. And finally, Ghost Salt versus Hallow Jasper, Asu versus Zerodi, Cookie Apocalypse versus yours truly MCD, with Procyon the bye week there.
Not like they need it.
MCD, anything to share at this point, or shall we sign off here?
I think we should sign off here, but I really do appreciate everyone who did stop in. As always, my name's MCD.
My name's Yabba Guy.
We'll see you
Have a
all
good rest
next
of your day.
week. Take care.
Bye-bye.